Hi, I'm Yvonne White, President of the Michigan State Conference, NAACP. And we want you to use this video as a call to action to get your membership and community engaged. The NAACP must stay on the front line of ensuring higher energy standards. Thank you.
I'm Keith Cooley, CEO of the consulting company Principia, and I'm pleased to be a part of the video that you're about to see. It's cutting-edge material that will help you understand the differences that need to be made in the next few years, the changes in the system that we work in now around energy and the way energy is produced. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. Good afternoon. How are you? So number one, thanks for staying this long. I know these conventions take a lot out of you. And for you to be here now instead of sleeping or going to get a coffee or something else is something special for a couple of reasons. It talks about your dedication to this work, but I'm glad that you're here because we've got a very serious subject to talk about. It's about energy, clean energy. How many of you here heard of Proposition 3 last year? Okay, then you'll have some idea of what I'm talking about. If you will allow me, I want to start with just a brief story that kind of set the stage. Story about a young man who went to a bar with some of his friends. They sat and drank for a while, and between you and me, this guy had probably 3 or 4 more drinks than he should have. At some point in the afternoon, he told friends he was going to go home. His friends said, "We'll take you home. You don't look like you're in a place where you should be driving." He said, "Doesn't matter, I'm just a mile away, I'll drive anyway." You know what happened. A little bit of ways down the street, police pulled him over to the side, smelled his breath, got his registration, his driver's license, got him out to walk a straight line. And just at the time they were doing that, a bulletin came over the police radio in their car. It said there was a robbery 2 blocks away. So these police officers said to the guy, "You just stay right here, we'll be right back. Don't move." So he waited 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, nobody's there, so he drove home. When he got to his house, he told his wife, "I'm going up to get in bed. If anybody comes looking for me, tell them I've been here all day, I've got the flu, and I can't talk to anybody." As you can imagine, 25 minutes later, the police showed up because they've got his driver's license. They know where he lives. They said, "Is this where Mr. So-and-so lives?" His wife said, "Yeah." They said, "Well, can we see him?" And she said, "Well, he's in bed. He's had the flu. He's been in bed all day. He's sick. I'd just assume you didn't see him." They said, "Okay, well then can we see his car?" And she said, "Well, why do you want to see his car? He's been in bed all day. He hadn't been out in the car." And they said, "We understand that, but just please, ma'am, could we see the car?" She said, "Okay." So she gets the keys to the garage. They go out to the garage and open it up, and inside is the police car. Oh. With the lights flashing. Now stop and think for a minute. At some point he's going to get up, he's going to be arrested, he's going to go to jail. He's going to go to a hearing with the court, he's going to probably do public service, he may be on probation. And every time he goes to anywhere near a bar, his friends are going to laugh at him. And all during this whole sequence of events that we just talked about. My guess is there's a voice speaking to him saying, "What was I thinking? What was I thinking to get that drunk? What was I thinking to steal a police car? And what was I thinking that they wouldn't find me out? If I could just go back a little ways, maybe a couple of days ahead of this, maybe I would have found a way not to drink so much, maybe not even to go to the bar at all." I offer that little story, and you might not see the reference, but I believe that we stand in a place right now in an environment that will do unimaginable harm to our relatives, our friends, and ourselves 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, maybe even right now when we talk about it. And what I don't want us to be is in a place 10 years away when we say, "What was I thinking? If I had just made some changes in the way we did our business around NAACP and around the community, maybe we wouldn't be in this circumstance." Okay? The issue is coal and the burning of coal. We burn coal in the United States since the 1800s. We first burned it to provide heat for ourselves. Some of you here remember coal bins in your house. I remember one in mine. We fed the coal furnace and it provided heat. Nowadays, consumers and Detroit Edison they take the power from the coal and make energy for us themselves. And so we now have energy not just to heat, but to heat and cool, and for other things. Run the refrigerator, run the stove, etc. The problem is that when coal is burned, it releases something called small particulate matter. If this is beach sand, and that's a human hair, and this is dust and pollen, that small particulate matter looks like that. It's awfully small. And it has a lot of really bad stuff in it. Arsenic, lead, mercury, nitrides of oxygen, oxides of nitrogen, and sulfur dioxide. Those things are things that are toxic to us, and it's so small, those particles are so small, when we breathe it in, number one, we don't know we're breathing it in, but number two, it lodges in the lungs and it lodges in the heart. Causes unestimable damage. Asthma, bronchitis, chronic bronchitis, lung disease, cancer, and premature death. And as an aside, it's also been associated with low birth rate pregnancies and learning disabilities, especially attention deficit disorder. So that means for our young folks, when they grow up and they get into school, they oftentimes don't learn the way they should. And so instead of being in a place where they can get all of the grades that they should have, go to trade school or college, get a good education, find a good job, get married, have children, be an asset to the community, we oftentimes find them ending up at places where they are unemployed or underemployed, in poverty, and then at some point incarcerated. I ran Focus Hope for 5 years. And many of the people that we had coming through Focus Hope, great students, smart as a whip, able to become engineers. We get them the engineering degree and they go out to get a job and say, well, I got a felony on my record now. We worked really hard to get them past those points. The thing that we have to remember, sometimes it may not all be the fault of that young child or the family. It may in fact have to do with the environment in which they live. I say all of that hoping that you recognize that this is all fact. This is not theory. Don't let people tell you that there's something else going on here. In the 1960s, 1970s, we got the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and the Federal Clean Air Health Act started to push on emissions from cars because of the same kinds of things: lead, mercury, arsenic, oxides of nitrogen, oxides of nitrogen, and sulfur dioxide. Okay, on a national scale, those are some of the issues that we deal with. Here in Michigan, we get the majority of the energy that we get, the electricity we get, from coal. We buy coal from other states, notably Kentucky, Wyoming, and Montana. We get some from West Virginia, Pennsylvania too, but pretty much those states. If you look across the United States, there was an environmental audit done not long ago that looked at 375 coal burning plants. Of those 378, of those 378, 75 failed the audit with a grade of D, E, or F. And 8 of those plants were right here in Michigan. 6 got Fs, 1 got a D, and 1 got a D+. What does that mean for us? Well, they failed. They failed because they were putting too many pollutants out into the air. So that means for us, people that live nearby who probably don't even know it are starting to see rashes of hospital admissions, emergency room visits because of asthma, chronic bronchitis, asthma exacerbations or attacks, and premature death. That's what all of this is all about. And if that wasn't enough of a problem, when you look at how the burden is borne across the state of Michigan, most of the public health burden is borne by 2 communities, communities of low income and communities of color. Oftentimes the plants are put in those areas. For African Americans alone, African Americans are 14% of the Michigan population. They are 15%, I think it's up here, yeah. They are 15% of those who are in a population that would probably die an early death because of the pollutants that they breathe in. But when you look each year at how many people are dying and what the percentages are, we are fully 25% of those that don't make it to the next year. We are 14% of the population. We are 18% of the folks in the city, in the state that have asthma. We bear 75% of the brunt. 75% of the folks that go to the hospital in the emergency room for a visit with asthma are African Americans. This is a story that we paint for everyone in the state of Michigan, all of our families, our communities, if we continue with what's called business as usual. If we just continue to do this right on along, no problem. It'll be this. It won't be a lot of fun. I don't know about you, but I've had the first bronchitis attack I've ever had in my life 3 years ago, and coughed so hard that I ended up passing out and I couldn't drive for 2 months. So if it's business as usual, I'll expect another one in another couple of years. And maybe some of your friends have died of heart attack or lung cancer. By the way, you know, African Americans have a higher risk of dying of lung cancer, and yet we smoke less than the rest of the population. If that's what we want, business as usual, we can have it. And by the way, it's not just us that these 8 plants affect. When those plumes of smoke go up, they blow east and southeast. They blow across Ohio. They blow across Ontario. They blow through Pennsylvania and on down. And for the year, we expect 1,000 premature deaths and 400,000 asthma attacks from that source alone. Is that what we really want? No. I mean, it's okay. You can say no. No, thank you very much. Exactly, no. There is an opportunity for a cleaner future. There is an opportunity for a healthier future. And it comes with 2 things. A chance to put the legs into what was called Prop 3 and increase the amount of energy that we derive from solar, wind, and geothermal and gasification processes, number 1. And number 2, to push our federal government and our state government and all of the companies that are involved in the energy business to live by the tenets of the Federal Clean Energy Act. Reduce the amount of mercury in the smoke plumes, and take out the arsenic, and take out the lead, and scrub it of the oxides of nitrogen and the sulfur dioxide. If that's done, some neat kinds of things happen. Number 1, in these areas where plants are, and I didn't show you the other picture, but number 1 is the amount of emission, the materials in yellow, are a lot less than they would be today. But even more than that, we would begin to see health effects almost immediately. When we reduce coal plant emissions and increase reliance on renewable energy, a lot of neat things start to happen. Right now, 180 people a year die early death because of these pollutants. If we were to put just 25%, just go up to 25% of the total power generation, make it out of solar or wind or geothermal, we would have 130 less deaths. So we go from 180 down to 50. That's a 3-fold decrease. If we were to do that, instead of 69 to 70,000 asthma attacks, we'd have 20. We go 50,000 less, another 3-fold decrease. Now, I don't think 50 deaths is good. I don't think 20,000 asthma attacks is good either. 1 death isn't good. 1 attack isn't good. But we got to start somewhere, right? These kinds of changes that can be made, I mean, they're available, they're made in other states. Those are the kind of changes that can have that effect. A 3-fold decrease. How would you like a 3-fold decrease in your tax bill? Anybody here that doesn't want that? Everybody here paying your taxes? Okay. If you had a threefold decrease in your salary, how would you feel? You'd be real upset. So threefold, 3 times something is a lot. It means a lot. And even more than that, the cost of us bringing coal in and burning it to this into the state of Michigan, the cost that we pay in health premiums, and the cost of the emergency room, and the cost that we pay to the doctor, and the cost that we pay at the funeral home, amounts to $1.3 billion. If we make the change we just talked about, we cut over $1 billion out of that health cost. That health cost drops to $222,000 a year. $1 billion, that's a lot of money, even spread among all of us. Maybe it's a vacation for the family. Maybe it's a new car or a newer car. Maybe it's new furniture in the house or a trip to Disney World. Maybe it's a scholarship or that you can provide for someone, or tuition at a trade school or a college or university. $1 billion is a lot of money. Over and above that, there are other things that driving our energy production to 25% from these cleaner sorts will do. When we bring this coal from Kentucky and Wyoming and Montana, we export $1.7 billion out to pay for it. That's money that we never see again. You can't do anything with that. As we begin to build our resources and our energy production from other sources, that money doesn't have to go out. It can be used here for us. It can be used to create and sustain new businesses. In fact, experts have said there will be a $10 billion investment put in place if we could move to this 25% level for new businesses across the state. That's businesses that would actually make power from solar or wind or from using the warmth of the ground. That's businesses that will make the machines that they give to these companies to make the power. And that's the supply chain that makes the parts to make the machines that they give to these folks to make that energy. We're talking thousands of Michigan jobs. Some folks have said 10,000, some have said 90,000. I don't know what the number is. I know it's tens of thousands of jobs. And we're talking about jobs that are not minimum wage. It's not $7.50 or $7.80 or whatever it is today. We're talking jobs that start at $30,000 a year and go up to $80,000 and plus. Laborers, machinists, carpenters, electricians, engineers, scientists, quality people, machinists, coding specialists. All of these folks will have jobs based on those new businesses put in place. Right now, the state of Michigan has 20,000 people employed around new energy, renewable energy, and a lot of money in it too. When these folks get their paychecks, are they going to put the paycheck in an envelope and send it to Kentucky? They're going to spend it right here. They'll spend it with the bank, they'll tie it to church, they'll make that college tuition payment, they'll go to the grocery store and buy things, they'll get their clothes out of the dry cleaners, they'll go to the restaurant, and when the person in the restaurant who waits on them gets their check, where are they going to go? They're going to send it to Wyoming? No. They're going to use it to pay their dryer bill or buy gas, etc. So the idea here is that the money, every dollar that we can save for us to use gets a chance to rotate in the community 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, as opposed to going away, won't see you anymore. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, good. Glad to hear that. So, here's what I'd like to do. Having said that, I'd like to have a little dialogue with you now. We can just talk a little bit. No wrong answers, no right answers, wrong answers, etc. But just a chance to talk some things over. Because we've clearly put in front of us a path that we're on right now. I call it business as usual. You've seen it probably in some of the documents as that. There's another opportunity for a different future that's cleaner and healthier and brighter. The real issue that I'm trying to deal with, that I want to have a discussion with you about, is where are we going to go? Do we want more sickness, or would we like to be healthier? Do we want to have medical bills? Or would we rather have that money in our pocket where we could spend for better jobs, better family supporting jobs, the wages that come from that, etc.? So if that's not happening, and I don't think it is, the real question then becomes, so what's going on? What's happening around your neighborhood, your community, that keeps us from getting this kind of discussion going in a way that will drive changes in the system? I talked to, yes sir.
What's happening?
You know what, let's get do we have another mic? Use that one, that's all right. Yep. I'm gonna push that.
What's happening for not allow this to go on in the last election? Consumers have already bought property, equipment, everything, solar panels, to do a solar field. When the election came around, I was in a meeting with a gentleman from consumers, and he says, well, we changed our attitudes about it, and they spent a whole lot of money on the campaign not to have it and bring their ads read on TV, that it was going to cost you a whole lot more money in your consumer's bill. Now, I live about a half a mile from a wood-fired
Plant.
Yeah. And I have seen the difference because in the wintertime, in the past, in the snow, I would not see soot. Now I do, but they gear up real hard late at night.
Okay. All right, so the gentleman makes a point. The power companies today have a requirement, the power companies today have a requirement that by the year 2015, 10% of all of the power they generate has to be from these renewable sources. So they're getting some of them done, but they've decided they don't want to go to 25%. At least that's what they said in all of the commercials from last year. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Any of you have solar panels in your yard? You got people talking about it when you go to church? What was that, ma'am?
Oh, yeah, I said I know people talking about it, like in my community. I know people talking about it in my community and church, but only because I initiated the conversation.
Because you initiate the conversation. Yeah. Oh, listen, hey, I like that. That's good. What do they say? What kinds of things are they saying?
Well, at first, their perspective is very negative. They believe that it will cost like a huge amount of money, or it'll have a negative impact on the economy. But then I bring the point to them that this is the end of the Industrial Revolution. We have all these empty manufacturing businesses. It's time for a new economy. And if we really want to see a better future and give kids opportunities that they want seen in Detroit, we have to create the opportunity for them. And then they said, okay, I get what you're saying. I'm like, well, we have to invest somewhere. We have to do something. And if we really want to, have a healthier, safer, more sustainable place for our children to live, we have to start thinking green. And then once I plant that seed, they start talking about it to other people. And then that's how you kind of see them feel more empowered about it once they're educated. Because a lot of people just don't know how the environment and our energy is connected to every single thing around us.
Well, I guess I'm done. Hey, that was great, lady. That was wonderful. Very well said. Absolutely. Absolutely. Please.
And I would just like to also piggyback on what the young lady said. Sustainability for our communities is becoming a hard sell. But what I've been doing is I've been relating it to jobs and community economic development. I mean, it's wide open. I mean, it's waste management. It's all kinds of things. It's urban gardening. But we seem to be paralyzed as to where to start. Because whenever we say it's going to cost something, that just stops it for us. And I don't know why, because we spend money on everything. Now, in relating to what you're saying, and I hope I get this right, the coal industry, aren't they being cut back? But Obama has taking funds because they're now saying that we're going to lose all these jobs, and if the coal industry has to do this and that. I don't have it all together, but I know it's something.
Oh, you're on a good path. You're on a good path. Keep talking.
Can you speak to that? Because
Yeah,
I'm not really
sure.
sure of what's going on.
Yeah, and then I'll let that gentleman. Yeah, I'm sure you all heard the young lady. The question is the Obama administration on a path that would drive the coal industry to have higher costs, maybe to lose some people, et cetera? I think this morning there was talk, at least when I was watching Good Morning America, there was that little banner that went underneath that said the Obama administration was looking at the Clean Coal Act that requires either scrubbing that smokestack of all the stuff that's in there or finding a way to sequester or to store the carbon dioxide that comes out of that, so we don't end up with worse climate control issues and greenhouse gas that we have. So the answer, from my point of view at least, is yes, it's a start. But we've talked about this before. It's a lot like every president, I want to say since Nixon, and I think it's before that, has said in one of his State of the State messages, we have to get off foreign oil. We off foreign oil yet? No, not yet. Now, it turns out, most of us don't know that you guys probably do because I think you're pretty bright. Our biggest importer for foreign oil for us is Canada. But we still get oil from Saudi Arabia and a lot of these other places. And clearly issues that hit there have a way of working their way into the economic, the security and political landscape that we live with here. I will offer the same thing. The folks in Kentucky, the folks in Montana, the folks in Wyoming, the folks in West Virginia that are digging out the coal and sending it here, they've got a whole lot of people standing in Washington trying to make sure that the administration and people that are on that side are convinced that it's not the right thing to do. And I will offer, this is not news, shouldn't be, sometimes the convincing is a party or a bit of funding for the folks that want to do things their way. So, to your point, you're right. We're aligned against a bunch of forces that have a lot of money and a lot of power. But that doesn't make us impotent at all. Did you want to say something? It was a very good question. Thank you.
I was talking with a friend of mine that we're going to go pretty much to electric cars. So he said, yeah, well, who's going to pay the gas tax then? Now, if you notice, lately when the flex fuel, they started with the flex fuel cars, and they all of a sudden just came, everything had flex fuel right away. From back in '73 when we had the gas shortage in the line.
Oh yeah.
Brazil started using sugar cane, and their gas is only 15% gas, the rest of it sugar cane. Well, why haven't we started doing growing a hybrid sugar cane that can be grown in other places, such as, well, it's already grown in the South, but more or less in this area, as well as with the sugar beet. Michigan was a very high grower of sugar beet until somebody contaminated whole crop, not by accident, it happened. Am I right or wrong? Yeah, Monsanto.
Thank you. Now I will offer. I was in Brazil in 2008 and got a chance to look at the gas and all of their production. Yeah, they make ethyl alcohol, and a lot of it's used in vodka, but a lot of it gets put in cars too. No. Who was CEO of Monsanto?
One of the gentlemen that just ran for president.
Ah. Who was it? Romney?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So I've got several folks here who seem to know the landscape pretty well. Okay. Well, that's one way to get it. Read. That's true. Others of you, somewhat the same kinds of feelings about things?
I'd just like to share.
Yes, sir.
I would like to share what you're saying is so very true. I worked in a neighborhood where there was two farmers. back in the 50s and 60s. And I would like to know if a study has been done on the amount of pollution that was generated in that neighborhood that is probably causing death today. I won't call the name of the neighborhood, but I can tell you the substance that was been sent from those smokestacks in that community was something terrible. It would stick to your car,
Yep.
and you couldn't wash it off. So if it stuck to your car, what it did for your lungs. Then we had people working in that environment. So I just like to say, I think we're on the right track for this renewable energy.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Absolutely. I worked at Pontiac Motors near the foundry. I grew up in Pontiac, and you're dead right. I find this flash stuff on your car that you couldn't get off. That's a lot bigger than this stuff we're talking about here, and it does as much damage as allowed to, but you know, when things hurt, you try not to breathe them. This stuff you don't even feel. But the point he's making, that all of you have made, is exactly right. Are we facing an opponent or a set of opponents that is too big for us to handle? Too big for us to go up against? No, good. Not as a group, right? Okay. So one of the things we're going to have to do, I'm going to say this year, I'd even love to talk a little bit about it now, but I think we're running out of time. One of the things I want us to try to figure out to do is, what can we do? You don't have to answer it right now. What can be done? What can each of us do? And who's willing to sign up to do what? Because this is a continuing discussion we're going to have this year. I think you know that in Wayne County, Proposition 3.1, we got to make sure that in the out counties, that not Prop 3 necessarily, because I get the sense that people don't want to change the Constitution. I get that. But the idea that a lot of folks don't realize right now that electric power that comes from wind turbines is now, I want to say half. I'll have to look the number up. But I want to say about half the cost of what would come from a new coal plant. And your power company isn't going to tell you that. I mean, you can read it because there was a new report up just from the state yesterday. You can read it. But the folks that we're going to be talking with and trying to convince to come to our side are not going to want to tell us about that. So, okay, so listen, thank you for that. I want to offer, yeah, go ahead, one more. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment because I really have a personal connection with your story. The way I got involved with the environmental justice movement, when my grandmother was diagnosed with known kidney cancer, which you would never think it would be connected to the environment. One of the things the doctor said, if we lived in a better environment, it would have prolonged her life a little while longer. So when she passed away, I really wanted to get involved with this environmental movement. However, my concern is it's been such a big distinctive between environmentalists and civil rights. And the only way I really got affected, by the issue is because something personal happened to me. And a lot of people don't know just how connected our environment is to energy, health, jobs, who's in power, who's making the decisions. And so one of my goals is to actually create some type of conference for young people to be educated on why it's so important to know about these things and how it can affect them. But how can we bridge that gap between civil rights and environmentalism? That's the biggest thing that I'm finding right now. A lot of people just don't know how to make it click. And even me, when I'm trying to talk to people about it, I make those personal connections and they can see where I'm coming from. But, however, it's like a lot of people are afraid of this because they feel they don't have any connection or they're not, big on science or engineering. How do you make it more personal?
Last comment, and then I'm going to take the mic back because I love this conversation. I wish we had more time.
Well, as the young lady said, and this anytime you are affected economically, you're affected with the health, I mean, it's obvious. And nothing will change for us unless we change it. We must become more proactive. We must. Because we're dying, I mean, and it's the best.
Absolutely.
Part of why we're creating
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
vehicles like this to you, where we're going to have training materials made out of it, is because from the national office down, we're focused on the 5 game changers, which is going to be able to bring all of these issues into 5 pods so that you can wrap it around the social justice work out there, and it doesn't seem like an either or, but all inclusive. So this is why we're committed to taking it to the next level, to making engagement for the 21st century for the NAACP, with a lot of resources that are able to now put you on a platform where you can make a wide scope educate on a numerous amount of issues around these 5 games.
Along with that, this one slide comes from the NAACP. The darker these colors are, the more concentrated are communities of color and communities of low income. Where these circles are the opportunities to bring in either renewable energy companies or the supply chains that make the parts for them. I mean, it's a one-on-one match. It's a pretty darn nice thing. So, let me close, or get closer to the close. You've already, you said what I wanted you to get to, and that is, in some ways, I hear now a call to action, and I call it in 5 separate areas. We don't have to talk about them all, but what are the things we either should be, or we either are or should be doing in our communities? You can give me one. Talking about it, at a minimum, right? Yeah, and if they don't like what they hear, we need to have information to help them see how things are. Foundations, Kresge, Mott, Kellogg, what could we do? Thank you. There's no reason we can't talk to those foundations. Ripper Apston is a guy just like you and I are. Bill White's a person just like you are. There's no reason we can't call them and say, listen, we want some money set aside to help support grassroots efforts to get at this issue around renewable energy and the health problems that come when we don't use it. The legislature. You can talk to your representative. How many of you have been up to Lansing? There you go. Oh, I love it. 50 times? Get in the face. Write a letter. Do an op-ed. People say op-eds in the papers don't do any good. You'd be surprised. Those folks and their aides look at what's there. Whether it's a congressional, whether it's a federal senator or state senator or congressperson, they listen. Help them understand that this issue of just energy is important. They've got to make policy that's going to allow us to do this right. Businesses. What can we do with our businesses? Big or small? Make them accountable. If they're doing what's right, if they're involved with the actions that take us toward that cleaner future, do you want to buy from them or you want to boycott them? If they're doing the right stuff, what do you want to do? You want to buy from them. You want to buy from them, you want to patronize them, you want to tell your neighbors about them, you want to make sure that people begin really to support. If they're not doing what's right, you might want to think about doing some other kinds of things. I'll just leave it at that. The federal government provides hundreds of millions of dollars in the states for federal research around the impact of energy sources. University of Michigan, EPA up in Ann Arbor, many other schools get that money. There's no reason why we as a group cannot call the presidents of these universities or the deans of the colleges of engineering or the executive directors for the organizations that make these studies and get it off our mind, get it off our chest. Get the piece off our chest in a well done way. It's possible. So I know you will. I know you will take this under advisement. Last story. This story is called Two Wolves. It was an old Cherokee chieftain who sat with his grandson one day and he said, I want to tell you something that hopefully will help you with life. The grandson was listening and the chief said, inside of me there are 2 wolves fighting. They are in the middle of a death struggle, a vicious fight. One wolf represents evil. anger, apathy, hate, self-doubt, and those kinds of things. The other represents good, love, kindness, courage, joy, and those kinds of things. The little guy thought about this for a minute, and finally he looked at his grandfather and he said, "Which of the wolves will win?" And the old chieftain looked at him and said, "The wolf that will win is the one you feed." The wolf that will win is the one you feed. And the question becomes, with us, which wolf do we feed inside of us? Do we feed the wolf, not inside us, I hope. Do we feed the wolf that is apathy? I don't care. Let somebody else do it. Or it's too late? Or do we feed the wolf that represents courage? I know I have to make a difference. I know I will be talking to people that may be more learned than I am. That doesn't make them any better. Are we going to feed the wolf that is full of self-doubt? Well, I'm just nobody, and I just can't, and I just can't, and I can't, and then I can't, and I can't, and I can't. Or are we going to feed a wolf for positive, proactive action? Thank you. Because the one that we feed gives us the future we're going to have. We don't have to have business as usual. It's really our choice to have a future that allows our children and their children to live the best life they can. Thank you.